Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another straight up solo. And in this episode, we are going to take a look at the Anarchy. I'm going to show you how this plays from a solo standpoint, talk to you a little bit about the solo campaign that comes in the actual box, and just give you an example of the gameplay. And then, of course, compare it to the game's predecessor from the same designer, Hadrian's Wall. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, folks, and as usual, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. If you have, I really do appreciate the support. Thank you very, very much. So the meat and potatoes of this game is looking right at you right here. These two basically fill-in sheets, okay? This is everything you are going to do right in these sheets. And as you can see, it's packed with options. It's packed with bonuses, things to do, things to explore, things to focus on, things to ignore because you can't do everything, etc., etc., etc. Lots going on in this game. Up here is basically like your round track. It's going to show you the different rounds in the game as far as how far you've progressed. It's a 5-round game. I've already played through round 1. I'm about to start into round 2. This is your castle, and this is the tower defense portion of the game that is pretty unique and interesting and is a little more involved than the idea of just the defense from the center, the left, and the right, which you saw in Hadrian's Wall with the invaders. Up here is what you're going to do when you attack other castles. How much strength you have to bring, what kind of weapons, the food it's going to take for you to go there. It also shows you the amount of bravery you're going to get, which is one of the 4 victory tracks you fill in, and the rewards for pillaging that, okay? And so you're going to want to be doing these things, and every time you do attack one of these, you can attack once at least per round. In fact, I think that's all you can do. I don't think you can go further ahead. It's just once per round. You're going to fill in this little box right here because I defeated this last turn. An enemy castle defeated. Okay. So lots going on in this game. Now, the best way for me to show the game is just to demonstrate a little bit about the way the mechanics look. And then I'm going to pause the video, finish almost my whole turn, then do the tower defense, which is an important part of it, and then tell you what I think. So the other thing is that I am playing the first in the campaign in the solo. And what that does is the campaign has 20 different chapters in it. And each of the chapters tells you which of the 5 cards you're going to put out in here. And there's a huge deck of different cards that you're going to use throughout the campaign, doing all sorts of different things. There's a story involved. The campaign has specific victory conditions. So in this case, it tells me I've got to construct and complete all the mint levels, which is the small, the medium, and the large. I have to get at least 15 or more loyalty and 15 or more influence in this track over here. So that means get them all the way out to here. I can only have 0 to 2 discontent. You can get discontent from a variety of things. Mostly it has to do with not providing enough food to do your attack. Your defense. And also not fully defending against these attack cards that will come up. However, all is not lost if you can't do that. You actually can work on some rewards, these joy rewards over here, to kind of like wipe out some of that discontent that may happen. And then finally, 60 victory points or more. Now, if I get 70 or more, I'll get a bonus for the next chapter, which is a silver coin and a soldier, okay? There's also some cards you take out. There's some other things there, but each of these chapters, again, and there's 20 of them, have different victory conditions, different bonuses, different things you got to do. It also says in the gameplay, it's up to you. You want to move on after you, if you don't complete the chapter, go ahead. If you want to replay the chapter, you can totally do that. However, they say for whatever reason, if you replay the chapter, you don't get the bonus again. Don't know why, but that's the way it goes. All right, so let me show you then what you're doing. This game, the first thing you're going to do is you are going to deal out attacking cards, all right? And some of them are going to be revealed so you can see what's coming. This one is a revealed card. I'll tell you about what these mean in a second. Some of them, again, here were revealed. Some of them are going to be hidden unless you have a spy. So the hidden cards give you some information. I know that this card is going to come with a battering ram. And the way I defend it are the gate, which I haven't built any yet, my soldiers, either the knights or the craftsmen or the soldiers, and also I can use boiling oil if I have developed that tactic and I actually have boiling oil to spend. So that tells me that I'm going to be doing this, but it doesn't tell me exactly the strength of the attack. In this case, it does say it's here, so I know where it's coming from. But there's other ones that you don't necessarily know exactly where they're coming from. So for instance, if it was this card right here, you can see it's one of the walls is going to happen, but I don't know which wall it's going to be. All right, and I have to have a moat to defend against it, so it can attack at any side. But I need to have a moat, and then I can also use these logs to stop it. So information there that helps. All right, on the cards you can see, I can see that I need the moat right here. I can see that it's going to come with a strength of A to this side. All right. Now what that means is that let's say I don't have a moat at all. I could station soldiers over here for a specific defense against an A attack, which is a strength of 2, and will be coming from this side. But I already have, because I previously built it, just serendipitously, a moat strength of 2. So I don't even have to worry about that card. I got that defended. And in this one, over here, it's a strength of 2 on this side and this side. Well, the way to do that is either having the tactic for rocks, and hurl the rocks off the wall at people as they're coming up the ladder, which I don't have any of those tactics developed yet. But I can also have simply a wall strength of 2 that would help, or I could, again, station some temporary soldiers there to do the job. Now, here's the deal. You have to completely defend against the full strength of the card for it not to count against you, okay? And you always resolve it right to left. So that is what I'm going to be paying attention to while I try to do all these other things. Now, how do I do all these other things? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is, because both of us are on this spot, so I'm blue and this is my rival, and the solo is very simple. The rival just basically moves up every turn, and the only thing the rival does is that if I don't keep pace by attacking one castle every turn, I'm only going to be able to take the top of this card. That's it. Now, what do these cards do? Well, I get to choose from 2 of them because of the fact that I'm up there with him, and I can either do the weaponsmith or the priest. The first thing it does is it lets me get all of these resources over here. But then I'm going to get victory points for either 2, 4, or 6 constructed siege weapons, or 2, 3, or 4 Valentine's Festival pairs. So constructed siege weapons are over here. I've already constructed one. I know I'm going to be building a bunch more of those. So I'm going to go with the weaponsmith. So I'm going to put this over here, put that over there. I'm going to get all of the stuff. So I'm going to get 3 yellow surf workers, 2 of these craftsmen, 4 pieces of materials. They look like lumber, but I guess they could be anything. 3 of the patrons, 1 coin. Then I'm going to put this under here, showing an end game condition for getting extra victory points, which is going to be very important if I'm going to try to get to 60. Then I go to over here and see, well, what am I also going to make through my production? Well, I get 1 more surf because of my default 1 there. I don't have any craftsmen, so I don't get that. I don't have any material. I get 1 material, pardon me, as a default. No patrons, so I don't get any patron guys. I do have 2 on the mint side, so I'm going to get 2 more coins. I have 2 on the food side, which is good. So I'm going to get 2 loaves of bread. I've got 2 soldiers, which is a default, and then no knights. So with these resources, I'm going to have to do everything I want to do this turn. Now, what is that? Well, that is basically filling in any of these spots. I pay whatever it shows in the spot over here, for instance, and then I cross out and I fill in those things. So let me just help you by zooming in, so to speak, on one of these, all right? So you can see all of these payments, for instance. If I wanted to do any of these defense actions, the gates, the towers, the walls, I have to spend 1 of the black craftsmen and 1 wood to fill in the next box from left to right. Some of them have requirements, like I have to build the small or the black crane if I want to go bigger, or the small crane, I should say, or if I want to get past here, it's the large crane. There's all sorts of other things here. Just let me tell you, there's tons and tons and tons of things to fill in. And then on this side, you have all sorts of other stuff that you could do to invest in all these other tracks. So there's the governance track, the warcraft track, the worship, and the entertainment. And each of those have to do with all of these different things you can fill in by, again, spending workers and spending other things to get rewards. And every time you fill in a box, not only do you make progress on what you're doing, but if it covers something up, you also get that. So you're going to get chain things here where you get more workers. I do this, I get that kind of worker. I do this, I get that kind of worker. And there's literally just tons and tons to go over here, but I'm not going to teach you the game. I'm just going to tell you that this game pays off in spades when it comes to variety. And I'd say probably even more variety than you had in Hadrian's Wall, because there's more going on. There's more you can do. So there's more options, and this is definitely a heavier game than that one. So let me just take a couple turns here. So like I said, I need to make sure that I can handle these, and I'm actually pretty well set up to do most of them, except I don't have any gates. So let's go ahead and start building the gate. Let's take this craftsman and the wood, whoops, spend it. I fill in this spot right here. I get one of these patrons, and then I can set up my gate at a level strength of 1 to begin, all right? Now, all I know is that depending on what I'm dealing with, because they give you a little bit of an understanding of what could happen, I could get a D strength or an E strength. E's are harder, or this is harder here for this. A D would be worth 3, and E would be worth 3. So this is going to be a 3. I know that for a fact. So that means if I want to boost this up, I'm going to have to spend a lot of resources on that. Well, I only have one more craftsman. So what would I do? Well, I could train a knight. All right, so let's take a look at that. How would I train the knight? Well, I need to have more of these worship filled in, and that would help me. I could do that. I could get it from building the small keep, which isn't a bad thing either. And that gives me some different resources. So there's lots of ways to do different things. And the other thing I want to do is I need to attack this castle to kind of keep up with everything. So to do this, I have to develop this ballista. So how would I do that? Well, I'd spend a coin to invest in the siegecraft technology like I just did. I'd cross out the ballista, but that just gives me the plans to do it. I still have to build it. Well, that requires my last craftsman and my wood. So now I've built it. Building the ballista gives me a might. I can fill in the might down here. That'll give me 1 point at the end, another point I should say, and another one of these. So you can see how that all chains together, okay? But now that I have the ballista, I have the capability to attack this. I also have a bread, so I'm almost there, but I need 4 might. So the best way to get might would be to try to get more knights. Well, how could I do that? I told you I could train them. I could also try to hire mercenaries. So I think I'm going to do that, or I should say allies. I'll spend this coin right here to hire this knight right there. And that gives me a knight. So that's good. Now, where am I really lacking? I'm really lacking on the craftsman. So what can I do to do that? Well, the best thing to do would be to find a way to get more craftsmen somehow with these hammers in future rounds. The challenge is that to get those, you've got to find ways to cross those out, and there's not very many. There's only 3 of them, and I'm not even sure, honestly, where they are on this thing, to be frank. There's someplace in here. So anyway, there's ways to do this. I just haven't spotted where that is right now. Where you'd be able to get a hammer, they would give you a craftsman, and then you'd be able to build some more of those. So there's lots of stuff going on, all right? That's all I can say. Just lots of different things to explore. And really, you're going to be focusing on trying to build up your castle, trying to make this work so you can attack that strength. And in fact, I could do that right now. And just for good measure, I'm going to show you how to do that. So what I will do is I'm going to spend one of these guys to invest in the entertainment. This will show you the mini game. So I get to brew beer because I crossed off this little beer thing. So they give you this deck of cards, which counts for these little mini games that you play. And there's all sorts of things going on in the cards. Depending on what you are looking for, it depends on which symbols you focus on. In the case of brewing beer, I focus on this symbol right here to show the 2 different things I get. I get a hops. I think that's a hops. No, that's a barley or a wheat and a water. So I go over to the brew house and I fill those in. Here, I'm going to fill in this water and I'm going to fill in this wheat. And if I end up filling in a hops and whatever that is, I can't remember, I get to circle the beer and I can give a beer to one of my soldiers to give them a strength of +1 during the fight. So there's reasons to do that. And so these little brew house things are one way to use these cards, but there's a bunch of other ways to use them. You can use them when you train knights, which gives you extra bonuses in how you do that. You can use them for tournaments, which has this little jousting competition. You can use them for this, it's Michaelmas, I guess. And this is like a play or I can't remember what it is, but basically like theater stuff, entertainment, and that can give you different resources and other things there by comparing these numbers to try to add up to a specific number. You can use them for this festival, this Lammas, which gives you these flags, and when you surround a certain thing, you get to cross off the other reward and get that reward. Lots of stuff going on. You can try to marry people off in the St. Valentine's Festival. And if you provide a couple that matches based on the way that goes here, you get these rewards. Just like I said, tons of different things. All right. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to stop. I'm going to play the rest of this turn. And it may take me a little while. This game is not going to be a super short game unless you really are confident what you're doing. But I'm going to take the rest of the turn. Then I'm going to stop and I'm going to come back while I do the assault here so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so I have taken my whole turn, and a couple things. I did find the hammer there in the guildsman. I forgot about that. So I spent a bunch of time really kind of bolstering a lot of my production and filling in some stuff over here. I was pretty satisfied with the way I have my defenses built there, so we're probably okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I know I've got a problem here in the fact that I've got to deal with 3, because this is going to be a 3 value. So I've got the 1 defense there. We're going to put 2 more. That's going to satisfy that card. Now here I'm all set, so we don't have to worry about that. And then here, this is going to be a value of 2. I only have a value of 1, so I'm able to put that here and that there. I've got 1 extra guy I've got to assign. It doesn't really matter where I put them. Okay, so I should have also paid 2 food right away. 1, 2, right? Because that's the round I'm in. I'm in round 2, so I'm going to pay those food. If I did not pay the food, I'd start taking discord or discontent, which is one of the things that could cause me to lose the game. So I don't want to do that. Plus, it's negative points. So now that we've done that, I've deployed my people there. At this point, there are no like carryovers for the next round. You lose anything you haven't deployed. Or spent. So you lose all your serfs, you lose all your patrons, you lose all your resources. Now we go to the attack. So I reveal this, and it is an E. E is 3 here, and it's it's got a skull, which means I'm going to get a bravery for actually defeating it. So, like I said, strength of 3. I've got 1, 2, 3. I have successfully defended. So we just push that up, showing that I defended it. Here, this is a strength of 2. I've got a 2, so I've successfully defended. And then here, this is a strength of 2 on this side and 2 on this side. I've got 1, 2 here. I've got 1, 2 here. I've successfully defended. So I've got all those. I've successfully defended all 3 of them. Now, what do? Well, the first thing I do is I get a bravery for every one of the skulls, which is just 1. Then I look and see, all right, the number here, which is 2, minus the number of undefended attacks. Well, 2 minus 0, because I defended all those, is 2. So I get 2 in the loyalty. 1, 2. And then I would gain discontent for every, for 2 minus the number of loyalty gain. Well, 2 minus 2 is 0, so I get no discontent. See how that works? And so I'm in good shape there. And then for any leftover defenders, for every 3 of them, strength 3, I would get 1 serf, okay? But I only have 1, so it doesn't count for anything. So my round is over. So then at the end of the round, I will flip both of these over. All right. I will put these over here. And then I put these basically on top and shuffle them then in for the next round. Again, you're going to do this 5 times. And there's all sorts of different things you can focus on to score points. It's not just about surviving, of course. You got to score those points. You got to do the objectives. You got to do all that stuff. So there's lots to think about. All right. So let me go ahead and tell you what I think. So let me say right now that the Anarchy is not a light game. It's not ridiculous or over complex by any means either, though. It strikes a middle ground really well. I know people say it's heavy. It's just got a lot going on. The actual rules, even though it's a 40-page rule book, that's because a lot of the rule book just talks about each of the different things, and it's somewhat repetitive. In order to build this, you have to build all these first. You got to go left to right. You got to do this and that. You got to unlock next section. In order to do this, same kind of thing. In order to do this, same kind of thing. They did do a great job, however, which I really appreciate, giving you plenty of detail on how the siege stuff works, because that by far is the most complicated thing in this game. But once you figure it out, it makes complete sense. And I know that sounds weird, but it's kind of like once you learn it, you'll know it forever. You understand it, okay? You don't have to do any rules references after you kind of get it. They wisely give you this card right here, which acts as a great player aid that helps you do everything you need to do. They give you in front of you the attack strengths of any of the different stuff that could happen. It's really well presented, and for that, I think it's a fantastic triumph, because just looking at all this stuff, I mean, looking at all that stuff to fill in, right? And here, and yet it's a very attractive looking game. It may feel overwhelming at first as far as, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. And there is. And that's the fun part. There is so much going on. There are so many different things you can do in a game. But what's interesting about the solo campaign, there's 20 chapters. Now, I did not play the unofficial solo campaign for Hadrian's Wall. So I apologize. I don't have any frame of reference there. But what is very nice about the solo campaign is that it changes it from a sandbox mode kind of game into something that's very specific. Different goals, different objectives, different things to shoot for. It forces you to try different stuff. And what I would say, my recommendation is that after you play just maybe one or two solo games, depending on how familiar you are with this system. I only had to play just one solo game, and then I felt like I was ready to go into the campaign, because once you finish a game, it will all have clicked, I think. Now, that first game is going to take some time. There's no doubt about it. It's going to take some time to kind of figure out, oh my gosh, what leads to this? What leads to that? How do I get to this? How do I get to that? There is a good player aid that's posted from that standpoint of how do I get this? How do I get that? How do I spend this? How do I spend that? Posted by the designer on Board Game Geek. So check that out. I didn't find that I needed it, though. I just needed one game to kind of see how this related to that and so on and so forth. And that was all that was necessary. I did not teach this game to you. I left out plenty of stuff. But I can tell you that it's approachable. Now, it's also not a quick game. There's a lot to consider and a lot to think about. Even though it's a 5-round game, you're going to be scratching your head, especially, I guess, as you get familiar with the whole thing, because you're going to have, you're kind of overwhelmed a little bit with, I've got to focus on this, I got to focus on that, I need to score points, I've got to attack the castle, I've got to deal with, several different defensive things, and how do my defenses look, and how much can I afford to use, like the temporary soldiers and the knights versus building more defenses, etc. Lots of cool stuff to think about, which is great. But it's not a game you're just going to sit here and just like, laissez-faire, played for the TV or whatever. You got to focus. And that's probably the toughest thing about the game, is because you have so much possibility on each round, it can be very easy to spend this to this, and this to this, and all of a sudden say, so shoot, I was getting focused in this, but then I forgot about doing that, and now I don't have enough. It takes some serious concentration. So be aware of that. If you struggle with analysis paralysis, this game is going to be kind of tough on you, I think. But this game is not a very difficult game to learn. It's not a game where the rules are just so complex. It's not that way at all. There's just a lot of content. I put this at the same level as I put games like Civolution, where a lot of people think, well, that's a heavy game. I don't think so. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of options. This is the same kind of game in that regard. Now, what do I think about it in general? It's a fantastic solo game. No doubt about it. It is actually, I think it's perfect as a solo game. I don't think you need to play with anybody else. You could definitely do that. You could set it up. They give you several different ways to set up. So let's say you're not going to play the solo game. They give you a classic mode, easy, standard, and hard that you can set up for, which give you different cards to work from. And then they give you this siege mode, easy, standard, and hard. And what that does is that gets rid of that whole I have to attack the castle, and instead you've got to deal with like um, getting enough bread together to withstand sieges and things. So it changes the whole thing. It's not like it dumbs it down by any means. It just gives you a completely different mode to kind of look at. So it's very cool. So anyway, I love the fact that there are lots of different interesting things you can invest in, which makes the whole idea of the end much more fun than it was in Hadrian's Wall, which is why I think this game is a superior game. Even though Hadrian's Wall is great, this one is more fun, especially since you have that tower defense side of things. Now, I will say this. The tower defense side of things is a big reason why I feel like this game is more fun. If you would rather do something simpler, if you'd rather focus on just investing in tracks and everything else and not have to do so much thinking for that assault part at the end, the siege part, then Hadrian's Wall may be the better game for you. I like the complexity of this castle and the decisions to defend. In Hadrian's Wall, you're basically just picking to bolster up the left flank, the right flank, and the center. And that's all you have to really worry about in that regard. The rest of it is just trying to do other things and invest in other things and score in different ways, etc. And so from that standpoint, that game, it just depends on what you want. But I can definitely see you could decide to go one or the other. You could have both in your collection. That's fine. I do kind of feel like this one might replace Hadrian's Wall for me because it's just more fun and there's more there. Not that I'm in a rush to sell that game by any means, but I just have a feeling when it comes to the two, I'll be reaching for this versus Hadrian's Wall. So that's my preference. I like it. I like the heavierness of it. I like the way that things work. It's a little different in the fact that in Hadrian's Wall, you can kind of bounce around a little more. In this one, you can't skip buildings. You can't skip stuff. You've got to like fill it all in before you can go to the next thing. And so that's one of the other twists to it. You couldn't, like, for instance, just skip the small mint, go right to the medium. You got to do it all and then go to the medium and then go to the large. So you have to be a little more locked in, I'd say, with that and spend more effort on kind of ranking up those things versus just doing this or that and kind of moving around a little bit. Overall, I think it's a fantastic game. It really is. It's a great solo experience. If you like more complex games, this isn't a flip and right that's easy. This is a medium to medium heavy. This game is for you. It's not easy to score well. It's not easy to do well. The campaign will give you plenty of challenge. Even those, easy, standard, and hard will give you plenty of challenge. So you can set it however you want. And it really takes a good understanding of trying to get the most out of each round by stringing things together to get this to lead to this, to add to this, to all around there, and then come out and you're like, wow, I did so much in that turn. That was really productive. That's awesome. I am super set up for that assault, or I'm really set up for that next, when I've really invested in my production. So the next turn is going to be huge. It's just really, really good. And so I highly recommend you check it out. If you have any interest in this type of game, you've seen my unboxing. It does all fit in the box, but just barely. With the two dry erase boards that I have in there, I got a little box lift. That's why I'm playing a couple of these, by hand with the pencil, so I can work that pad down just a smidge and it'll fit a little better. But everything goes together really well. Very good package here. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Whatever you do in the future, I really hope you have a fantastic time doing it. Take it easy.